Hi guys and welcome to ZOM Anime.
It's your girl Bruca.
And Big Boy Summer here.
Does that make Gonzo a hero?
Listen, why are you trying to make Hitler work?
Dude, why do you keep trying to make Hitler work?
ZOM 100, Episode 7, Truck Stop of the Dead.
Tendo worked while everyone enjoys a welcome Tendo party. He actually works the party.
Some people call it a push-pull method, some people call it a give-and-take method, but really and truly, the toxic person in the relationship is the one in charge of your happiness and gives you drips and drabs of happiness throughout the toxic behavior. So therefore, the person who is being victimized gets the relief and the happiness from the person who's toxic. An example. In this episode, Gonzo was giving Tendo some hell, and then out of nowhere he goes, "That's why I treat you the harshest, because I see that you are the most capable," or some nonsense like that. And so Tendo felt that joy through all the myriad of BS that he was going through, and he latched onto that, and that's when Gonzo knew he had him. And that's how most toxic relationships work. There's other stuff, but in this situation, this was the crux that was used. There's some gaslighting, there's some other things, but yeah, Tendo was hooked by the magic that was Gonzo's manipulation.
Yes, I did find it kind of weird how he seemed to be almost brainwashed over such a short space of time, which goes against kind of what I was thinking from the beginning, which was he was pushing it up with such a terrible situation because he didn't want to make his co-workers suffer by having to pick up the slack. That's what he had said previously, that's what it seemed to be, but the way that he just fell back into it and there was no longer that pretense involved, to me it sounded like the motivation of what he was doing and why he was doing it completely changed.
To pick up on your point, I read this book and I've harped on about it before. It's called The Gift of Fear by Gavin De Becker. If you haven't read it or listened to it, please do that as soon as. So he said people don't use fear right because they are given wrong information. And Tendo probably honestly did believe that he was doing that kind of stuff because of his peers. But really and truly, the magic had already been done. The manipulation had already set in. There's another book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that book, it says that people have two reasons for everything. The reason that they tell you and the real reason. So Tendo probably himself didn't know what the real reason was. And so scrambled together a reason saying, it must be the fact that I need to pick up the slack for the co-workers. But really and truly, it's because he was afraid, he felt lesser than, and he just felt he had to comply. And that's based on the manipulation that was going on and the hot and cold relationship that Gonzo Boss was giving him. I fully understand that. And I'm sure that you guys have seen it in your everyday lives, how some people just fall into line.
I understand what you're saying and I actually do agree with it. And I think that this anime produced the same effects by kind of leaning on everything extremely heavily so that everyone would get the point. They might have leaned it a little bit too far, but it's an anime and, we're used to this kind of thing. Even Tendo saying that he felt like he owed his boss something for looking after him so much, to me was a full dud, because we all know that the boss crashed the car intentionally. We all know that he injured Kencho and could have killed him with the way that the roadblock was set up. He was on a motorbike, and if I remember correctly, he wasn't wearing a helmet or anything like that. He could have seriously injured himself. So not only did he damage the vehicle, risk Kencho's life, entrap them here, and then have slave labor, we all know it. It's not like it was a secret, like some people like to manipulate you into really believing that they're doing you a big massive favor. It wasn't subtle enough from a manipulation point of view. However, it was a massive, great setup for Shizuka's backstory and her relationship with her father, which was also toxic and had similarities to the relationship that Tendo had with Gonzo.
I agree that there were similarities, but Gonzo and Shizuka's father are two totally different characters.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't want you guys to misunderstand me here, but I believe that Shizuka's father wasn't coming from a place of malice the way that Gonzo was. I believe that her father was actually coming from a place of love. It's just wrong. However, we all know that Gonzo was just from a place of malice and manipulation. And we can tell this because Shizuka's father, when he was portrayed, had absolutely there was no sense of push and pull, give and take. There was just orders, and it was just expected. And I grew up in an African household. I actually fully understand what this is like. You are my son. You are obviously going to do what I say. That was the respect. Well, that was the expectation. And on top of that, he wasn't doing it because he wanted Shizuka to be under him. He was doing it because he wanted her to be the apex predator of whatever industry or whatever path that he had set out for her. So I get that. Yeah, totally toxic. 100%. However, Gonzo is more insidious and it's disgusting. And in the last episode, I never said this, but I was advocating for Tendo to kill Gonzo. I wanted him dead. I thought it would be a nice way to wrap things up. But I think they wrapped it up pretty well. He lost his power as opposed to losing his life, which is even worse because you have to live with the consequences. So yeah, I think they did a good job there. Shizuka's father was just militant, and some people from an older generation are just like that.
I would actually go as far as to say that another difference between Gonzo and Shizuka's father is that Gonzo has no finesse and no charm about what he was doing. It was hard for me to actually believe that someone could be manipulated by him, because really my strong belief is that no one can manipulate you unless you allow it to happen. And the best way for a manipulator to get you to allow them to manipulate you is for you to be unaware that you're being manipulated. Once someone has started their manipulation tactics on you and it's had some semblance of working, that's when they can be more like Gonzo and be way more over the top with it, because you're going to fall back into that programming, which is what you were saying before about Tendo. But I still couldn't see that, because his job, like from our flashbacks of what we've seen, his boss was always like that. There was no working up to anything. He was just always a dickhead. So it was harder to accept. Whereas with the father, it's way more understandable. On top of that, I believe the same thing as you. The dad wasn't doing it from a rough spot. He obviously worked himself from a low position to a high position, and he had to do it on his own. He had to do it overseas. He would have faced a lot of challenges, not being from the country, language barriers, all that kind of thing. He would have had to have a really thick skin. So he was trying to get her to also have the thick skin and have high standards because he wanted more for her, but he went about it so wrong and kind of messed her up a little bit as well.
Yeah, 100%. Look, she is a product of that programming, and she's only finally understanding that there is alternative ways. Because at the end of the day, if we look at it like from a logical, purely numbers sort of standpoint, they are both alive in the apocalypse, and they both have totally, and this is Shizuka and Tendo I'm talking about. They're both alive in the apocalypse, and they both have completely different goals and approaches to things, but they're both still here surviving. So therefore, there's not only one clear-cut way of winning this, there's not only one clear cut of living, and it's pretty nice to see the juxtaposition of both of them. Back to being unaware about manipulation, yes, to some extent actually, if I do think of it. However, there's many ways to be a leader, and he wasn't a great one, he was just a functional one. So functionally, he was good, and that is it. He was a trash human being, a trash boss, and he always put people under the thumb and under the cush. So unfortunately, no, he's not a hero.
Unfortunately? You're sad you can't designate him hero status.
You're sad I can't designate him hero status. Unfortunately for you, he's not a hero. He is just a really tyrannical administrator at best.
He's not a hero. He's not. He did too many terrible things, and the good things that he did was more like a byproduct of everything else. Like, he had to give them somewhere safe to stay so that they would work for him and feel like they owed them. It wasn't from the goodness of his heart. Nothing good that happened was from the goodness of his heart. However, he efficiently ran the whole place, and a lot of the people that decided to leave are going to die. I guess it raises the question, what would you rather? Live on your knees or die standing up? They opted to die standing up.
There's a lot of people living on their knees making £30,000 a month. I'm just saying.
Rating!
I give this episode an 8 out of 10. I liked it. It was a good conclusion to an ongoing issue that we found. Also, they took the anime seriously this episode, and that's what we were complaining about last episode. So I liked it, and it brought everything round in a nice way for me. And the conclusion didn't feel hollow, and justice was served. So yeah, I'm good. 8 out of 10 for me.
Some of the things I did not like in the episode, however, it's still an 8 out of 10 for me as well. I thought it was a really great episode because just what you just said, they took it seriously. We got Shizuka's backstory, which made sense from her personality perspective, and I just really enjoyed watching this one, to be honest.
First of all, thank you so much for watching our episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's Bob Anime Insta. Peace.